Thanks a lot, everyone. This is Greg Walker from CABA. Marta couldn't make it today. She's away, so I'm filling in for her. This is the Intelligent Buildings Council webinar meeting. It's going to be led by Bob Allan, and we'll be starting off at right about now and then ending around 1:30, maybe a little bit earlier depending on how things go. And we'll have a short, there's a keynote session as well. So we'll briefly go over the agenda. Here's the agenda, and then there's a call to order, welcome introductions, and about the IBC from Bob, and going over a little administrative work, approving the past minutes, a little bit of research update, some of the work that CABA is doing on the intelligent buildings front in our landmark research project, and another one on building automation control systems. And then our keynote presentation from Victor from XME.digital. This is on the integration pitfalls while embedding IoT platforms and technologies into the enterprise IoT landscape. This will be around 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. There'll be opportunity to do some Q&A as well during that this keynote presentation. Ken Wax will go into some white paper updates and on the white papers that we're currently working on, and make a call for new white papers, go over some new business, some announcements of some past events that in the industry, and then some future events as well. And then adjournment and notification of the next IBC meeting that we do these meetings quarterly with different keynote presentations at each meeting, and everyone's welcome to attend. So with that, I'll pass it off to Bob Allan to chair the meeting.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody. This is Bob Allan. I'm the Vice President of Sales for NAVCO, or National Security Integrator. I'm also the IBC Chair. With me today, or our vice chairs, are Harsha Sharashikara from Honeywell, and Robert Lane from RH Lane and Associates. Happy to be here today. Looking forward to speaking to you. As you all know, the IBC was founded to help promote intelligent building technology, not only amongst our peers who are in the intelligent building space, but for those who don't have an understanding of it, and to be able to bring education and technology to the forefront, kind of demystify a lot of the myths out there as well. On the administrative side, I'd like to have the minutes approved from our last meeting. Anybody who would like to see those can go to www.caba.org/IBC. The meeting notes and minutes are listed on the IBC website from our May 12th, 2022 meeting. I'd like to make a call for a motion to approve those minutes.
Dave Katz, I approve it. I was on the meeting.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Sure, second, Ron Bernstein.
Thanks, Ron. Are there any opposed? All right, hearing none opposed, the motion passes and the minutes are approved. To get things started, I would like to pass the baton over to Bob Lane for an update on the CABA IBC research projects. And if Bob did not make the call, Greg, do you want to do the research?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think Bob's on the call, but yeah, I'll go give a brief update on the two research projects with the IBC. This year's research was selected we did a short list, and then the board of directors selected the topic of healthy buildings and indoor environmental quality. And we have these are the funders that you'd see on the screen now. We haven't started the research. We're looking to get a little bit more funders on the project. Essentially, it's around $120,000 research project in the space, doing surveys out to 1,000 thought leaders in the space, and then some in-depth interviews as well. And it's a quite detailed research project. We did the RFP, sent it out. We did a selection process and a presentation to the initial funders, and Harbor Research was selected to do the research project. It's really going to look at technical barriers, looking at some customer pain points, adoption challenges, and really identify strategies and business models and technology going forward. Really as a business case analysis of healthy buildings and indoor environmental quality with
Can I
probably a little bit
play this
heavier.
through the speaker? Will this disturb you?
Sorry, sorry, what was that, Ken?
Oh, I think Ken meant to be
Oh.
muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. So where was I? So there's still opportunity to join the research. So you can join. You get the full research for $5,000. You get to join the steering committee for 10. If you're interested in joining this project, so that's a cost-effective way to do research and a quite a somewhat unique model of doing collaborative research projects where each of the companies will get their say into the project. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to myself at CABA, walker@CABA.org or anyone from CABA.
Yeah, that's great. What a great opportunity though to get your name associated with, with something in the IB space. This beautiful research project.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. And the next one here is this one's really just more of an information. This is a invitation only research project where select companies will share building automation control systems, market data, and we scrub the information, we pool it together, looking at software, hardware, and other sort of areas in the sort of backs market sizing in a North American landscape. So this one's more of just an FYI. There's only there's opportunity for I guess one invited company to join and participate at this point. But this is an annual research project that we started last year, and we're doing another one this year. So it'll be only for those funders that are on the screen here. So I'll pass this off to you, Bob, to give an intro to Victor and XME.digital.
Great, thank you. Victor, I assume you're on the line. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, hello to everyone.
Hi, thanks for joining us. So I've noticed one thing already. Everyone has avoided pronouncing your last name. So I am also going to avoid that. I'm going to ask you to please pronounce your last name for me.
It's quite easy. It's Kmita.
Kmita. All right. Well, welcome, Victor Kmita. It's a pleasure to have you with us today to talk about integration pitfalls while embedding IoT platforms and technologies into the enterprise IT landscape.
Thank you for having me here. And let me start. Let's say my personal background, about more than 20 years in corporate automation, and about 10 years of this I spent in telecommunications, running mobile operator and establishing one of the first real-time service providing application infrastructure for the operator. And for the last 7 years, we are developing XME.digital platform as an application platform and middleware for digital services, including integrating and exposing IoT scenarios inside of this. And
great. And I also know you've been involved in over 30 IT projects for large 100+ employee enterprises.
Absolutely, yeah. So many of them are coming to the same organization. So maybe a good third of them was related with a single telco operator having more than 10 million of subscribers. Actually, we've grown it from the scratch to more than 10 million of customers, prepaid and postpaid, within, as I remember, 4 years. It took us 4 years to grow. So it was one of the fastest growing operator at that moment. I'm originally from Ukraine, and it was done in Ukraine. Right now, we're also serving other operators, and I can highlight Vodafone Ukraine. We are providing our platform as a middleware to implement a variety of services on the single multi-tenant environment. And let me also present Doug Smith. He's also here on the call.
Hello, everyone. Yes, Doug Smith with ICE, International Corporate Expansion, based here in Toronto, and representing XME.digital for their operation in North America.
Thanks for being with us.
So Doug represents as our lovely representative in North America. So we're dealing and working together for a few years already, for several years already. Yeah, and may I ask you to go to the next slide. So what I will talk about, so we are not discussing about IoT gateways or device communication layer. Our main focus on having IoT devices, including sensors and actuators or communication and integration devices in this scenario. We want to have them as a part of overall digital representation of the businesses when we need to expose the assets and services of the organization to generate the value to internal consumers and to outer world. What is important right now, we're not talking about only external customers and trying to create their digital experience. What is important, we also talk about internal employees, and we want to expose the organization to them to be useful and efficient. And when we talk about narrow solutions like air control system or electronic locking system, it is offered as a full solution, starting from sensors and up to fancy dashboard with notification. And if it fits expectation of the user, it's fine. It solved the problem for the business. However, if the dashboard is not the end of the process inside of organization and it requires connection to internal organizational processes like synchronization of access management system with people shifts, for example, people shifts tends to change permanently, and you need to have all the access management system updated with the right schedules, who and when can access the systems. When it requires provision of the complex services of the auto world and some third-party applications, cloud application, and so on. In this case, it comes to be dramatically harder, if not impossible, to have the out-of-the-box solution. So it requires integration of the signaling and data streams to build the complex workflows with many dependencies and conversions of the data in between of the systems. Can we go to the next?
What Victor is describing there to everybody on the call, because there's different people from different walks of life in the intelligent building, smart building space, is the reality that every organization has a legacy situation, applications. You saw the numbers there; they're pushing 1,000 typically on average across the world that they've either inherited, then they have through acquisitions acquired some more, and then there, of course, everyone is on some stage of their digital transformation journey and is actively building new applications on top of all of that. So what Victor at XME.digital have done is carved out a space that says, regardless of what you have, there is a need for a single pane of glass to overlook all of those other systems and applications that you've built, inherited, or currently building over time. And then we'll get into the details of just why that is, because if you're sitting somewhere from a management point of view and somebody says, I want a health check on 938 applications, well, you don't want to call 72 people to get an update on 938 applications. You want to go to a single dashboard and have an immediate management level view of the health of the organization across them. So that's the starting point here, and we'll let Victor expand as we get through it.
Is that considered a digital twin, or we're still defining what a digital twin is?
So digital twin, that would be, we'll come back to CABA with another hour-long presentation at another time. But yes, absolutely, digital twins would be very much part and parcel of that. If the industry statistics from Deloitte or whomever we're quoting today is 938 and growing, then that same digital twin would have the same 938. So you'd have 1,878 if I'm trying to answer your question.
I recognize, I'm just trying to focus on how it affects buildings. Thanks. Sorry.
No problem.
Absolutely right. Actually, from this point of view, maybe not we are not emphasizing the digital twins, but it stands behind that story for sure. But what we want to say that there are no end-to-end transaction visibility. At least half organization doesn't know what's happening at the key integration points across the business processes. So, and if we talk about the building management, actually we have this point. As soon as we are going through the slides here and back, we can go further, and we can go to 3 slides to the next slide. Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Let me know if you want me to move. I was trying to keep up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
right.
so this slide for some reason is missing one box, but it's not a problem. So if we talk about the building out management automation in general, if we have a traditional heating, air conditioning, ventilation systems present, actually it can be well managed over the interfaces they're exposing to the users. But as soon as we're starting to grow and to have more complicated building management automation, it could be served by a single BMS system, having all the integration of lighting, fire detection, and video surveillance. From another hand, in many cases, it could be different providers, and it might demand integration into the scenario. And actually, what we are talking mainly about having these scenarios in our hands. So, for example, in the case of fire detection, video surveillance need to show the nearest cameras to demonstrate situation and maybe report the quantity of people around this area, something like that. It's good if this single BMS has these capabilities, but in many cases, something have to be built on top. And if we talk about better coverage, let's not stop on the middle, but if we talk about overall digital twins of the building, we have more scenarios, and we're also integrating with all the access management systems, some hospitality system, especially if we talk about some hotels and so on. And we are adding more and more and more services, which have a lot of interdependencies in between of that. And usually, if we talk about any organization which is growing together and automated during this process of development, usually it has the legacy system, the one more legacy system behind that, so, and a new project of establishing and migrating to the new system, and finally having 3 legacy systems inside. I don't know, maybe you have much better experience, but my projects usually shown the picture of having quite a big zoo of different applications, doing pretty same job, but still having it for different parts of organization. So
So the takeaway there that's being described is that independent of whichever BMS, whichever building automation system that an organization may already be on, or they may have multiple because of acquisitions and other reasons, there is still this need for the overarching dashboard overlaying on top of all this that we're gonna describe.
So let's go to the next slide. And actually, there are many problems to be resolved, and many opportunities could be also utilized. One of them may be most important, and I would like to emphasize that majority of organizations right now becoming a digital service providers, or let's say trying to present themselves. And we're not talking about just pure industrial IoT situations, but it also has certain elements of this, so related with predictive maintenance and so on. Not today's topic, but if we talk about especially hotels and any other houses, we have multiple services which could be added on top of the overall basic facilities and capabilities. As an example, it's also there could be new opportunities in revenue streams added here. For example, having possibility to order a pizza with one click without specifying the address and opening any the front doors to access, let's say, the apartment or building, something like this. And all these things are together, which are not generally native for the business. They are coming and knocking in the door and can provide more capability and competitive advantage. So, and let's go to the next slide. overall, if we talk about having these systems and bring this to the new digital services world, what we can do for this. There are many ways. First of all, what we need to do is to integrate in between all the new, also third-party and cloud services. There are multiple things which is already resolved, and none of the organization can exist just staying on its own perimeter. It needs to integrate and interact with cloud services, with any other companies providing their own services and reselling their services as well. And usually it brings a very big mess and headache with the integration of between of these components. So it stands maybe a bit far from the basic sensor, fire detection system and so on, but it's a part of the overall service ecosystem, which also has many interdependencies. So can we go to the next slide? So there are, from technological perspective, there are multiple ways of doing this. So we agreed not to go too deep into technical questions. It could be different separate discussions from here. So in overall, let's go to the next slide. There is a way of having the API lead integrations between the systems, when every system can expose their own API and providing the, let's say, possibility to perform variety of actions inside of the system, nearly all the exposing nearly all the capabilities of the software to outer world, to other system inside of the IT landscape. However, it has several problems behind, which could make it more complicated. Merely, I'm emphasizing more problems. There are many advantages as well in this scenario, but first of all, would like to say that systems operates with different data structures, and even their standards of data flow exchange practice shows that each company interprets it in a pretty different way, and there is different scenarios behind the systems. For example, we had an example of integrating between ERP and access digital log system, providing access management and working offline. And for sure, both systems exposing the interfaces to interact in between. But when we was talking about implementing precise scenario of specific order of logs to be opened on different conditions, finally, we had to add one more middleware system in between just to implement this scenario in accordance to the need of ERP, to read the data about people's schedules. It was exactly this story from ERP systems, and apply it interactively to the digital log management system. So doing and receiving the information about opening the certain logs and updating the schedule and rules afterwards. So it's a quite simple task of having several logs open on the specific order in different conditions, caused one more system to be developed in placed in between of these two to have them integrated. And usually it not stops on the two systems, and there could be more systems in between of them. And there is also a question regarding to security of the data flows on between the systems and integration of the identity management of the authorization and users who can work between the systems. When you're trying to show all the steps which are required to be done between all their systems, which works as a part of the single transaction, it's usually a problem to show the single person who was initiating this activity. For example, employee who is trying to access. You need to have that in the single identity user registry, and you need to transfers this data in between of the systems. It's one of the cases which happened in this case. So let's move on.
So just a quick comment, there's probably a few more red flags that Victor and company can add on to that, but one of them is that everything that was stated there, there's one more item that should be appended to that, is that this needs to be an ongoing, continuous scenario and not it's never a static one-time plug and play situation. All of those, the word API is used every day now, and it's bandied about as if it's a simple plug and play situation. But it's more than that. There are some complexities that need to be looked at underneath and behind the scenes. The certificate management and PKI, et cetera, that has to, when you're dealing with multiple vendors. So just the ongoing continuous integrity of those API integrations is another aspect of being visible in that single dashboard. Thanks,
Thank
Victor.
you. Yes. Let's switch to the next slide. Yeah, and if we talk about enterprise service bus integration, which was a fancy word to decade ago, it's let's say still a widely used and maybe one of the most popular way of enterprise IT integration. So it has a big advantage of having one single point of control over the processes. So if we talk about implementing such a scenario I mentioned in the previous slide, it perfectly fits to the platform. And it has also the dark side, and the problem is this becomes usually single point of infrastructure failure, and even having good redundancy of the applications of ESB, it usually anyway causes certain effects on the performance of the key processes. So it starts to depend from each other, and when you have say some delays or overloads in process A, it usually affects process B, and it's one of the big disadvantages of this scenario. One more disadvantage is when you need to create a near real-time processes or real-time response process. When the person clicks the button, he wants to get the result pretty immediately. So 30 seconds, it's not acceptable time. And usually if we talk about ESB, it's implements not immediate and asynchronous scenarios when you need to put the order, and this order will be processed over among different systems, and then you will receive results in a while. But person will not wait for this on the screen. That's one of the reasons why we not applied that approach when we defined the real-time services for mobile operator. We had to omit using the ESB scenarios because most of the service activation things need to be done pretty immediately with all real-time check of the balance and so on and so on. But sorry. Anyway, ESB helps to take care about multiple systems, but usually anyway, it causes you to unify the interfaces, and this unification causes you create new additional systems which stands out of the ESB by itself, which is creates even more complications and intermediate systems inside the infrastructure. So we can go to the next slide. There also could be middleware systems. Actually, I just mentioned about that, doing the translation of the acting as a translator from one language of one system to another one. But having them inside of the infrastructure, it brings a problem with the scalability from the point of let's say, growing quantity of interfaces. So again, unification could be a big problem. And any abstract provisioning, you are coming to have a very wide and big quantity of abstraction layers. So when you need to have, let's say, information about your user in one system A and system B, it's quite different, and you're trying to make some generalization of this stuff, and as a result you have a structure which is could be hardly management, because they simply not losing the data in between, but make it more complicated and requires you quite complicated ways of translation information in between of these systems. By the way, when we talk about ESB integration, usually this problem is resolved by using the standards and presentation of the some shared information, data models, and so on. Yes, and now, there are no such an approach which called manual integrations as a recommended way, but in many cases business is going through this approach when we just have a system A and system B, and somehow we need to match them together, and usually it requires some implementation on side of one system and on side of another system, just to have these scenarios implemented in between, not in between, but from each side. And there is no single control point over the integration scenario and so on. There are different teams usually who is working over different systems. And there is always some data which is missed on the integration, and it's hard to make it's hard after that to scale and maintain these solutions as well. Yeah, so but usually when we're starting any integration project, not from the scratch, there is always some peer-to-peer integrations which is happening. And we need to, let's say, either replace or somehow resolve in some other way to have that pretty standardized. And if we talk about some, let's say, Doug mentioned that already. If we talk about some single dashboard which controls all the processes, which is usually stands on top of the middleware integration or ESB, and enables you to work and control all the activities happening in between of the systems, and seeing the process from the start to the very end, and knowing its status on the current moment, and also by using analytical and tools to see the matching data from variety of systems. We are not addressing this topic much in this presentation, but it's in many cases it's so important, and it's this dashboard also enables you the way to control your business mainly from the single point of view, but it has one of the biggest problem, it's support and maintenance of this tool, because from the flexibility and making to customize that, it's not usually requires quite deep interaction with the edge third-party system, which is embedded inside. And you need to consider that there are usually quite specific skill set to manage these things together. And if we talk, Doug, can you support me on this topic?
Yeah, that what the other, so on the previous slide, what Victor mentioned, scalability is, again, goes without saying to a certain degree, but it needs to be stated out loud. And then on this slide, you were talking about flexibility. So flexibility, another term that's used is extensibility. So if somebody needs to add feature functionality on top of an existing system, you don't want to be going back and as described above and starting from scratch again. You want to have that same single code base that you can, that even somebody without a lot of programming skills can add new features and functionality without disrupting, without disturbing the integrity of the system. So that's critical. An example is because we in the industry rhyme off things that are capable under an intelligent building or a smart building, whether it be a smart meters, for example. They're pretty widespread, and then that's where the topic gets left. But all of a sudden, some of the property managers look in their world and they say, well, we've got smart meters, that's a good thing, but we have certain investors who own multiple units in our properties. So yes, it's good news is we have a smart meter, but from the end user customer tenant point of view, they're now getting, if they have an investment in 20 or 30 or 40 properties, units within the property, they're now getting 20 or 30 or 40 bills from those smart meters. So instead, if you have this single integrated dashboard, you can very easily, with the extensible feature add-on functionality, make a single bill for that specific investor rather than inundating them with 20 or 30 or 40 different individual bills based on the individual smart meters. So that's why scalability and extensibility go hand in hand and need to be described in the same breath. And then the other terms like low code, which we're using here, is an industry recognized and well-known term, but there's low code, fast code, no code. And so what XME.digital did is coined the term fast code to sort of be an umbrella term across all of those that describes a single code base for all of the above functionality that we're talking about today. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, and so let's move on to the next slide. So, and in general, just to explain what we do in this story, it's, let's say, being, we talk about different approach and we highlighted the red flags around them, but still there are, all of them are working ways to integrate and work between the systems. And actually what we do, if we talk about the building automation, property management, we act as a middleware system with all the disadvantages as well and advantages. And our target to explore the way for user, whether it's internal employee or it's consumer side. We want to expose to him the way to interact with the building management systems and communicate over a variety of interfaces, whether it's some application or chatbots or some other tools, which could be implemented in quite specific ways. And by using the fast coding approach, so employing the low code development as well, we're providing the right dashboards for the required user group. And based on that, we integrate the existing property management system, whether it's a single system or multiple of them, and if ERP system, if it's present also on the business. And we implement the service catalog, including the internal services of organization, and it could be just some basic things like, let's say, controlling the ventilation and so on. Plus third-party services, like I mentioned ordering the pizza as, let's say, silly example. And I believe more important is that based on this, there is a way to monetize the internal or external services on different scenarios, starting from, let's say, volume of consumption. I don't know, based on some hotels, for example, offering air conditioning as a separate service for additional cost. So, and in this case, that could be added to the catalog of services and even charged on the, I don't know, time-based model. Or it can be third-party services, including some, let's say, as I already mentioned, food service, or some other things could be ordered from the apartment. And based on this, there could be integrated scenarios to get these services and to collect them, monetize and collect the money for these services and expose it as a part of the final bill, for example, for hotel. And it could be integrated with other cloud services like analytical tools or any marketing promotional tools based on the previous experience of the person. So it's in this case, we combine the cloud and on-premise systems in the solid flows. So actually, that's the main topic. Doug, do you want to add something here?
Well, yeah, just as you've described was the scope of the presentation, the complexity of what all of the stakeholders on this call and more are facing. And the reality is that no one is going to mothball and change everything overnight. Even if they had an unlimited budget, it wouldn't be practical in a real world. So what is needed is this single pane of glass view of all of those very complex, multiple moving and being added to all the time, pieces and parts underneath. And so the good news is that pretty much the industry is standardized on IP, the Internet Protocol, as the underpinning to all of this. But there are some issues, of course, with that, with everything being connected all the time, everything being on the network. And there's a cybersecurity acronym for it to add to your list of acronyms out there is ZTNA, or Zero Trust Network Access. And so you need to make sure that all of these quote unquote intelligent devices are not being seconded by the bad guys to in turn put a denial of service attack on the building, for example, and shutting down some of the other services. So that's why there is this need for this overarching single pane of glass view of all those myriad moving pieces and parts, so that we can be proactive and get out in front of them. There are a lot of things that have gone without saying for too long. Everybody on this call knows how to update their operating system on their Windows machine or their Apple computer, or their organization takes care of that for them. But what doesn't get talked about a lot is the firmware that goes into all of these devices as well, and that needs a lot of attention, and it is getting attention now. And so in order to do the firmware updates, typically that's been a manual operation in the past, and as Victor was describing, there are now ways to do that over the air, and in doing so, you can actually even turn that into a monetized revenue generating service. There's a number of companies out there. If you want to get in touch, we can rattle off some names. NetRise is one of them on the firmware management front. Adolis out of Vancouver here in Canada is another young company working on that. And one final acronym, SBOM, Software Bill of Materials. Everybody wants to know what is in the makeup of the supply chain that goes into this, again, myriad moving pieces and parts. So you need to have a single pane of view, single pane of glass view of managing all of that, and that's what was being discussed here today. So hopefully, if there's any other questions, we'll get some feedback, and we'll be happy to discuss that further with you.
Well, thank you very much, Victor and Doug. I appreciate you taking the time to present to us. And the single code base makes a lot of sense to me. Having that platform to be able to jump off of and bring new applications in, or adjust the applications that are there without blowing up, the entire coded infrastructure of your building. As well as that, obviously, single pane of glass when you have multiple buildings or multiple tenancies within a building. So greatly appreciate you guys taking the time for that. We do have a couple of minutes here, so we can throw some questions out from the audience. Either you can unmute or feel free to put your question in the question and answer box. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, and I'm not sure, whoever wants to answer this, Victor or Doug, is fine. What's the best way to get started? If I have a building or a couple buildings and hey, I want to be smarter, I want to be able to have this digital flexibility, where do you start?
Victor, do you want to run with that, or you want me to chime in?
No, let me start, and you can add some after. So I believe the first start it's from designing the experience of the user group. So it's let's say it sounds quite far from the building by itself, but if you want to design the excellent experience, and you're not just trying to do the basics by itself. You need to go to see the consumer and understand what could be convenient, what would be required by them, what will be convenient to him or to her, and what can let's say let them choose and make the right choice you want to so that's the first point. And second point, based on this, you understand that okay, you have a basic facilities, you don't need real advice on that. So but if we talk about the basic facilities, you need to understand in the flexibility you're willing to have, starting from, let's say, having some capabilities of individual managing of heating or humidity, even so, for some scenario, if it's required, or not having them, and understand that you're building the experience on some other things could be important to the person.
So really, the first step is really brainstorming as a group. How do we want this building to function? What are our use case scenarios? And then how do we implement a digital platform to accommodate that?
Bob, this is Ken Wax. May I give a little different perspective on this?
Sure.
I chair the ISO-IEC Standards Committee, the world standards body, where we're looking at this very problem of interoperability among applications. We recognize that these applications are developed by a diversity of companies. So as a building manager, it's very challenging to come up with your ideal scenario where you're forced to buy equipment from a catalog of vendors. So the real question is, how do you influence the vendors to meet the ideal you're trying to produce? We're approaching that internationally by coming up with standards for the gateway between the outside world and the building, and for interoperability among applications developed by a diversity of companies. So I throw that out as an alternative that I don't think is completely opposed to what the Victor is presenting. It's just dealing with the reality that we're dealing with competing vendors.
No, absolutely, Ken, and we would wholeheartily agree with you there. As Victor mentioned at the outset, this is independent of the gateway marketplace, but absolutely complementary and will augment whatever is going on at the standards level that you're chairing, which is we'll keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, you know, you're welcome to participate through any national body where you do business, whether it's the US, Canada, or the European country.
Perfect.
I want to just differentiate between including the difference between a home where it's the individual and many of the things that are directly related to their, choice, to a commercial building that needs to be run by owners, occupiers, and operators. And so we're looking at it from the building intelligence quotient point of view of benchmarking. What is the legacy systems? And I'll ask Victor, are you adopting like the BACnet and the Haystack and the ontologies like Brick to facilitate the exchange and only the information that's needed? Too much information is confusion. So how do we judge what has to be brought over to your single pane of glass? And then how do you operate?
So that's a great question, and we're going to have to wrap up on this one. So Victor or Doug, if you can kind of answer this question in about 2.5 minutes, that would be ideal.
Fire away, Victor.
Yeah, I'll try to be fast from my point of view. So frankly, that's when we mentioned about digital twins, which sounds like full coverage of all the data present in the organization and making full reflection. It's not what we do and never done. So usually anyway, we start from scenarios, maybe trying to design that for the tomorrow, not for today, but anyway, we are coming from precise scenarios and we're trying to identify whether we can what could be this data sources, and what could be master data, and how we will keep that synchronous in between of the system, because usually have many data duplications in between of them. So we are looking over the scenarios and over the data which are present there, which are demanded, and we're taking only this part when it's possible. Let's say we can mainly stack with the opposite problem of not having an access to certain data, or not having them in the right form, which could be, let's say, used and integrated. But let's say if you talk about, let's say, I don't want to say that not necessary data, but data which is not in use in the specific scenarios. Usually, we're trying not to increase the traffic in between.
Thank you. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, there's two things at play there. So one is that the solution that's being described is independent of the standards that everybody is pushing strongly, as most vendors would say. We're all for standards as long as they're ours. XME is independent of that ongoing debate. So we will accommodate whatever is in place or whatever is being planned on any of those standards fronts. It's the integration work that's needed to accomplish whatever that business objective is today. So everything's tickety-boo, and then all of a sudden, somebody comes and says, hey, we need to retrofit all of our buildings with EV charging. Okay, well, let's find an EV charging solution. But now how do we integrate that into our existing billing systems, or do we just include that as a no charge item? How do we go about doing that? And that's where the integration work that's needed comes into play.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Victor and Doug. I appreciate you guys spending time with us. Victor, your contact info has been on the screen for a little bit now. So anybody who has offline questions are more than happy to reach out directly to Victor. It's XME.digital on the online. And again, I thought you brought a great perspective for us to think over. It sounds like there's a lot of debate and some conversation to be had as to how buildings will move forward. But this is a platform to discuss and look at all available technology. So thank you again very much. With that, I need to pass the meeting back over to Greg, who is going to go over the white paper subcommittee with Ken Wax. And my apologies to the council. I have to drop off for a 1 o'clock meeting. So thanks again, guys. Thank you, Greg, for keeping things going. And thank you to everyone who attended today's meeting.
Good to meet you, Bob.
You as well.
Thanks, Bob. With that, I'll pass it off to Ken to go over a couple of white papers that we have and a review of our white paper program before we go into some upcoming and past events and next steps. Ken?
Thank you, Greg. The IBC has been producing original white papers for about 10 years now, and it's been quite successful productions, useful for the members. I want to tell you what's going on now and encourage you to keep up the good work here. For our papers in progress, we have fire alarm systems in buildings. This is being led by Suzanne Alfano of the Canadian Fire Alarm Association. The paper is expected fairly soon. This has been underway for a while. The next paper is OT cybersecurity is applied to building automation systems for critical systems. This paper was offered to us by an organization called Mission Critical Global Alliance. The chair is Mike Marlowe. The Mission Critical Global Alliance undertook to author the paper. They sent us a number of versions which we reviewed, critiqued, and the final version that we found acceptable is being edited right now, and it should be ready within a couple of weeks. In fact, Marta tells me that it should be on the CABA website by late next week. All the completed CABA white papers are available at CABA.org/white papers, as you see here on the screen. I would encourage anyone that would like to author a paper that you can do it individually. You can ask for volunteers from the IBC to help you develop the white papers. We've had collaborative white papers developed. Just check out the CABA website. You'll see the variety of papers we've written. I also want to take this moment to introduce the CABA Publication Review Committee, which I also chair. That's the opportunity to have CABA publish papers that originated outside of CABA, such as a trade association or even a company's marketing papers. The only proviso is that the papers be relevant to the Intelligent Buildings Council members, and the paper provides some useful information. It can include some commercial reference to products, but it cannot say, here's a problem and the only solution in town is my company's solution. You can't say, here's a problem, here are the many different solutions, here are alternative products, and by the way, here's my company's products, and you can say that it solves the problem well, but just don't say there's only one solution in town. So with that proviso, we invite you to submit original papers or to find papers written elsewhere. If you do find outside papers, send it to the CABA Publication Review Committee, and we will then seek volunteers from among the CABA members to review the paper. We have a review form that's quite methodical and objective to determine the relevance of the paper. We categorize the paper in terms of the size of the building. We determine how recent the paper is. We assess whether it's worthy of publication, and to help you search for relevant papers, we assign keywords to it. So if you go to CABA.org, you can easily search for papers, and we have literally thousands of papers that we have vetted. And by the way, if you volunteer to vet a paper, you get paid $25 in real cash, plus $25 in CABA bucks, which you can use to purchase CABA publications and services. Thank you very much, Greg, for this opportunity to address the IBC, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thanks, Ken. Does anyone have any questions for Ken about our white paper program? Okay, well, thanks a lot, Ken. I'll go to the next topic. We're finishing up here, but so the next topic would really be new business for the IBC. Does anyone have any new business that the IBC should be working on? This could be an opportunity to bring up potential new keynote speakers, specific individuals, or just topics in general, new white paper topics, ideas, new projects you're working on, or anything like that. We also are doing a new podcast program. So if there's anybody that's interested in being a host or being a guest on a podcast on intelligent buildings, we could entertain those now as well, and or even think tanks. So I'll just open it up to the floor for anyone that has any new business for the IBC. Well, I guess it's been a long call. I guess I'll finish up with some of the past events and then go over the next IBC meetings and even some future events. So some of the past events that a lot of the IBC has been involved in, and CABA has been involved in as well, is like Distributech, IFMA World Workplace in Europe. There was a good call, a good presentation at RealCon, IBCon in Orlando, and then Light Fair that was in Las Vegas. upcoming events for the industry. This is an exhaustive list, but these are some of the key ones that we know that members have go to. You'll see on the screen here. I think some of the key ones would be Green Build, the Bixie Fall Conference. IFMA World Workplace is their main event is in Nashville next month, and then the largest light and building event is in Frankfurt, Germany, in October. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting. The next November 10th, and we're finalizing some keynote speakers and keynote presentations. But if anybody has interest in becoming a keynote presenter or knows of anybody that would be interested, feel free to reach out to myself at walker@caba.org, or if you'd like to be involved and add anything to that particular agenda going forward. So with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. The recording will be posted on the website shortly, and we'll be putting the minutes on the website as well in short order. Thanks a lot.